You're sitting with your back against a dumpster. The metal is cold even through your jacket, the one with the busted zipper you've been meaning to fix for 4 months now. There's a McDonald's cup in your hand, not for coffee, for change. Your phone is at 0%. Your wallet, the leather one, the good one, the one a woman you used to love gave you for your birthday, has nothing in it. Not a card, not a bill. Just a receipt from a gas station, folded up, from a life that doesn't exist anymore. A woman walks by with her kid. The kid looks at you for half a second too long. The mother pulls him closer without even thinking about it. It's automatic, like flinching from a hot stove. You used to be the guy who looked away first. Now you're the thing people look away from. And somewhere in your chest, underneath the cold and the hunger and the shame that's been sitting on you like wet concrete for 2 years, a single sentence repeats. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and flat, like a fact. Never again. You didn't grow up like this. That's the part nobody believes when you tell them later. You had a house. You had a job that paid the bills and then some. You had a savings account you actually looked at sometimes just to feel good. You weren't rich, but you weren't this. And somewhere along the way, back when things were fine, you remember saying something out loud, half joking, half not, to a coworker during a rough month. I swear, if I ever go broke again, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm never going back to zero. You laughed when you said it. It felt like a thing people say, a throwaway line. The kind of sentence that sounds tough until life decides to test it. 2 years and 4 months earlier. You were 34. You had a 2-bedroom apartment outside Columbus, Ohio. Not fancy, but yours. You worked as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company, the kind of job where you knew everyone's name. You had a parking spot with your name half worn off on a faded sign. And every other Friday, the whole office ordered pizza and pretended it was a celebration even when nothing was being celebrated. You had $4,200 in checking and another $11,000 in savings. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a cushion. It was proof, in your head, that you were one of the people who'd figured it out. You paid your bills on time. You had a car that worked. You had a girlfriend, Dana, who you'd been with for 3 years. And you were starting to talk, not seriously yet, but starting to talk about maybe looking at rings. You felt stable, and stable, when you've never had a lot of money, feels like winning. Then the company got bought. It happens fast when it happens. One Monday, there's an all-hands meeting with a guy in a suit nobody recognizes, talking about synergies and exciting new direction. By Wednesday, half your department has a box on their desk. By Friday, it's your turn. Severance. 6 weeks, pay. You remember thinking, okay, that's something. I'll find something else in 6 weeks. You did not find something else in 6 weeks. You didn't find something else in 6 months. Here's the thing about losing a job in your mid-30s in a mid-sized American city. It's not one big collapse. It's a slow leak. You apply. You get callbacks. You make it to round 3 of an interview process and then get a form email that says, we've decided to move forward with other candidates, which is corporate for we found someone cheaper, or younger, or with a connection we didn't know about. 3 months in, you start applying to jobs below your experience level. Warehouse work, retail management. You tell yourself it's temporary, a bridge. 5 months in, you're behind on rent for the first time in your adult life. Not by a lot, $300. But behind doesn't care how much. Behind is behind. 6 months in, Dana sits you down. She's not cruel about it. That's almost worse. She says she still cares about you, but she doesn't recognize who you're becoming. Someone who doesn't shower until 4 p.m., who snaps at small things, who stares at his phone for hours scrolling job boards without applying to anything, because the rejection has started to feel like it's not even worth attempting anymore. She moves out in October. You remember it was October because the leaves were doing that thing where they look beautiful right before they all fall off and die, and you stood at the window watching her car pull away and thought, that's a metaphor and I hate it. By month 8, your car gets repossessed. 2 missed payments. You didn't even get a real warning. A guy on a flatbed truck just shows up at 6 a.m. while you're getting ready for an interview you didn't even have a way to get to anymore. By month 10, you're evicted. Not dramatically. No sheriff banging on the door in a movie scene. Just a notice, then a court date you don't show up to, because you don't have anywhere to be that's worse than not showing up. Then, one day the locks are changed, and your stuff is in black trash bags on the curb. You remember standing there, looking at your whole life in 6 garbage bags, and thinking, almost calmly, almost like your brain had run out of the chemical that produces panic. So this is how it happens. The first night you sleep outside, you don't sleep. You sit up the entire night in a 24-hour laundromat because it's warm and the guy working the night shift doesn't kick you out as long as you look like you're doing laundry, which means you wash the same hoodie 3 times because you don't have anything else to put in the machine. The second week, you learn the geography of survival without anyone teaching you. You learn which churches have food at which times. You learn that gas stations will let you use the bathroom if you buy something cheap first, like a 99 bag of chips, and that buying nothing gets you a "this isn't a public restroom" within 30 seconds. You learn that libraries are warm, have outlets, have bathrooms, and nobody asks questions until closing time, when you have to figure out where you're going before the doors lock and the temperature outside actually matters. You learn the word intake, as in shelter intake. And you learn that most shelters have a line that starts forming around 3 p.m. for beds that open at 7 p.m. And if you're not in that line by 3, you're not getting a bed, you're getting a sidewalk. The first time you actually ask a stranger for money, your hand is shaking so badly you almost drop the cup. Not from cold, from shame. You'd spent your whole life on the other side of that interaction. The guy walking past. The guy who'd toss $1 sometimes and feel good about it for the rest of the day, like he'd done his part. Now you're the one holding the cup, and you understand for the first time that the look people give you isn't hatred. It's worse. It's the look of someone pretending you're a street lamp, pretending you're not a person who used to have a name tag and a parking spot and a girlfriend who liked the way you laughed. Months blur after that. Not because nothing happens, things happen constantly, but because your brain stops filing them as memories the way it used to. Memory needs a sense of before and after to work properly, and when every day is just survival, there's no before and after. There's just now, and now, and now again. You get robbed twice. The first time, someone takes your shoes while you're asleep behind a strip mall, just the shoes, off your feet, while you were unconscious from exhaustion, and you wake up to your bare feet on concrete in November. The second time, someone takes the $40 you'd saved up over 2 weeks of panhandling, money you were going to use for a bus ticket to a city where a cousin lived, a cousin you hadn't talked to in 6 years, but who you thought maybe might let you stay on a couch for a week. That $40 took you 2 weeks to collect, $1.25 at a time. It took the guy who robbed you about 4 seconds. You get sick. Of course you get sick. You're sleeping outside in Ohio. Your immune system doesn't get a vote. A cold turns into something in your chest that won't go away, and you go to an ER because you genuinely think you might be dying. And they treat you, and 3 weeks later a bill for $4,300 arrives at a mailing address you no longer have, which doesn't matter, because you'll never pay it anyway. But somewhere a number attached to your name just went up while everything else about you went down. You start to notice your own hands have changed, calloused, cracked at the knuckles, dirt that doesn't fully come out even after you wash them in a gas station sink with that pink soap that smells like chemical bubblegum. You catch your reflection sometimes in a store window, in the dark screen of someone's phone as they walk by, and there's a half second where you don't recognize the person looking back. Then you do, and that's worse. Here's the part that surprises people when you tell this story. The hardest part wasn't the cold. It wasn't the hunger, even though there were nights your stomach hurt so bad you couldn't sleep even when you had a safe spot. It wasn't even the violence, and there was violence more than once, mostly from other people in the same situation, fighting over spots, over scraps, over nothing, because desperation makes people sharp-edged. The hardest part was the invisibility. You stop existing to people, not in a poetic way, literally. Eye contact stops happening. Conversations happen around you, like you're a piece of street furniture. A woman drops her keys 2 feet from you, and you watch her scan the ground without once considering that the man sitting right there might have seen exactly where they landed. Because why would he matter? Why would he be paying attention? Why would he be a person with eyes and a brain and the basic decency to say, "Hey, they're right there"? You start talking to yourself, not in a crazy way. At first, it's just to remember you have a voice, to remember what your own voice sounds like, because sometimes weeks go by where the only words you say out loud are "spare any change" and "thank you" and "God bless" on autopilot to people who are already 3 steps past you before you finish the sentence. There's a night, and you remember this one specifically. This is the one that matters, about a year and 8 months in. You're under an overpass. It's raining, but you're dry, technically, which on a scale of things that matter out here counts as a genuinely good night. And you're looking at your hands in the orange light from a street lamp, and you think about that sentence. The one from The Office, "I'm never going back to zero." And you almost laugh, because you didn't go back to zero. You went past it. Zero was the cushion. Zero was the savings account hitting empty. This is somewhere below zero that doesn't have a number, because numbers are for people who still have an account to put them in. And here's the thought that arrives next, the one that actually changes something. Even if nothing changes that night, or the next night, or for weeks after. If I made it this far down, and I'm still here, still thinking, still breathing, still arguing with myself under a bridge, then there's nothing left that can scare me into staying small. I already survived the thing I was most afraid of. What else is there? That's the switch. Not a lightning bolt. Not a movie moment. Just a sentence, in the rain, under a bridge, that quietly rearranges something in your skeleton. Never again used to mean fear. I'm scared of going back to zero, so I'll play it safe. Stay comfortable. Don't take risks. Now it means something else. I already know what zero feels like, what below zero feels like, and I survived it. So whatever I have to do to never feel that again, I'll do it. Not from fear, from having already lost the thing I was afraid to lose, and finding out I'm still here. The next morning, you do something you hadn't done in months. You go to the library, same chair, same outlet you'd used 100 times to charge a phone you no longer had. And instead of just sitting there to be warm, you ask the front desk if they have any programs. Job programs. Anything. The woman at the desk, her name tag says Carla, doesn't flinch, doesn't look at you differently than she'd look at anyone else. She pulls out a binder. There's a workforce development office 2 blocks over. There's a program that helps people get a state ID replaced for free if you don't have one, which you don't, because IDs get lost or stolen or just disintegrate in a backpack that's been rained on 50 times. You walk to that office. It takes most of the day, paperwork, waiting rooms, a guy who asks you the same 3 questions 4 different ways, because the computer system crashed twice. But at the end of it, you're holding a piece of paper that says you have an appointment. An actual appointment with an actual date on it, for an actual ID. That night, you go back to the same spot under the overpass. And it's not like the cold is different or the concrete is softer. It's the same misery, technically. But something in your chest feels different. Like for the first time in almost 2 years, there's a tomorrow that has something in it. A small thing. A 9 a.m. appointment. But a thing. The next 8 months are not a montage. People love the idea of the montage. The quick cuts, the inspirational music, the moment where everything turns around. Real life doesn't do that. Real life does this. You get the ID. It takes 3 visits because the first time you're missing a document, and the second time the office is closed for a staff training day nobody told you about, and you almost don't go the 3rd time because what's the point? But you go anyway, because not going means staying exactly where you are, and you've already decided you're done staying exactly where you are. You get into a transitional shelter program, one with actual beds, not just overnight cots. A program where you're allowed to stay for 90 days if you're actively working towards something. The actively working towards something part matters. They check. There's a caseworker, a woman named Renee, who has clearly seen 1,000 guys like you and has exactly 0 patience for excuses, but also exactly 0 judgment for the fact that you're there in the first place. She tells you on day 1, I don't care what got you here. I care what you do next. That's the only thing either of us can control. You start day labor, not glamorous. Standing outside a temp agency at 5:30 a.m. with a dozen other guys, hoping your name gets called for a shift unloading trucks or doing demo on a construction site. Some days you get picked, some days you don't. The days you don't, you go back to the shelter and you feel that old hollow feeling creep in, but it doesn't sit on your chest like concrete anymore. It's more like weather. It passes through. After 6 weeks of day labor, one of the site foremen, a guy named Marcus, gruff, 50s, doesn't say much, pulls you aside and asks if you want steady work. Not temp. Real, on the books, 40 hours. You almost cry in front of him. You don't, but it's close. That job pays $17 an hour. It's not the job you had before. It's not the title, not the office, not the parking spot with your name on it. But it's $17 an hour, real, every week, direct deposit into an account you opened at a credit union near the shelter. An account that, 3 months later, has $600 in it. $600. It sounds like nothing. But you remember staring at that number on a screen at the library, and your hands were actually shaking, the same way they shook the first time you held out that cup. Except this time it's not shame. It's something closer to disbelief. Like your body doesn't fully trust that numbers can go up again. A year after that night under the overpass, you're renting a room. Just a room, a shared house, 4 other guys, thin walls, a landlord who's not particularly warm but isn't a slumlord either. It's $450 a month, and it's the first door you've had that locks behind you, on your terms, in almost 3 years. You still work construction. You're better at it than you expected. Turns out coordinating logistics for a living teaches you things about scheduling and materials and not wasting time that translate better than you'd think to a job site. Marcus starts giving you more responsibility. Small stuff at first, then not so small. You don't talk to Dana again. You think about it sometimes, what you'd even say. Hey, remember me? The guy you watched fall apart. I have a room now. It doesn't feel like a story that needs a sequel. Some chapters just end, and that's allowed to be okay. You do eventually walk past that exact spot, the dumpster, the overpass. It's about 14 months after the night that changed something. You're in work boots and a company polo, Marcus's company. You're foreman on a small crew now, 3 guys under you. And you walk past the dumpster on your way to a job site 2 blocks over, and there's someone else sitting there. A kid, maybe 22. Cardboard sign. Cup. You stop. Not for long. You don't make it a thing. You just put a $20 in the cup, which is more than most people put in cups. You know that now. You know exactly what $20 means when you're sitting, where he's sitting. And you say there's a place 2 blocks that way. Intake's at 3. You want a bed tonight. Be there by 2:30. The kid looks up at you. Same look you used to give people. The street lamp look. Then something shifts in his face. Like he's trying to figure out if you're real. If this is a trick. If kindness from a stranger is a thing that still exists in the world he's living in. You don't wait for an answer. You've got a crew waiting on you. But you think about that kid for the rest of the day. Not with pity. With recognition. He's sitting exactly where you sat. He doesn't know yet whether there's a tomorrow with anything in it. You hope. For him, there is. It's been a little over 2 years since the dumpster. You're not rich. You're nowhere close to where you were before. The apartment, the savings, the girlfriend, the parking spot. In some ways, you're still rebuilding pieces you might never fully get back. But here's what's true now that wasn't true before. You're not afraid of zero anymore. That's the actual switch. Not I got my life back. Not some clean, tidy comeback story with a bow on it. The switch is that the thing you used to fear most, going broke, losing everything, hitting absolute zero, already happened. You went through it. You sat in it for 2 years. And it didn't kill you, even when you thought, more than once, that it might. So now, when things get hard, and they still get hard, bills still pile up, the crew still has rough weeks, your back still hurts in ways it didn't used to, you don't panic the way you used to. There's a calm underneath the stress now. A floor you know you've already hit and survived. People talk about hitting rock bottom like it's a tragedy with no upside. And it is a tragedy. Don't let anyone romanticize it. There's nothing noble about sleeping under a bridge, nothing character building about being invisible to everyone who walks past you. If you can avoid it, avoid it. If someone you love is close to it, do everything you can to catch them before they land. But if you've already landed, if you're the guy with the cup and the dead phone and the cardboard sign right now, here's the thing nobody tells you from the outside. The bottom isn't just a place you fall to. It's also, eventually, the only place solid enough to push off from. Never again doesn't have to mean fear anymore. It can mean something you've already earned.